Okay, you're gonna start.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Henri Hellin and I am involved in industry, fish farming and fish processing since 30 years, so I will try to share with you some of my experience. Presently I am working in a group. Just a minute. That's okay. I am working in a group which is named Norway Seafood. Many names: Norway Seafood, Pilier Marin, Packer Seafood, doesn't matter. We are involved in fresh fish primary and secondary processing in north of France, in bream. Previously, I worked in fish farming in north of France in Athens, and previously in a company of engineering for fish farming. My first training, just to illustrate, I am an agricultural engineer at the beginning, and I also had an MBA. The company I am involved in is working in fishing processing in Norway. The company Norway Seafood will have a deeper presentation later, but it's the major wild fish company in Norway. You have the major farming company in Norway is at Marine Harvest. We try to become the same group in wild fish. This company has processing units in both Norway, Denmark and France. In France we have not only processing but also trout farming activity in south of France. My session will be mainly connected to fresh sector, and I think that for sea bass and sea bream, even if we are concerned also for more value-added product, frozen, fried and so on, we are deeply concerned by fresh. And I will try to make connection between farm fish and wild fish, because some experience of wild are instructive, and of course farm is many points different than wild in all the processing parameters that we will handle. The group Packer Seafood is involved in primary fishing. You can see all the location north of Europe here. It's mainly trawlers. They have 14 trawlers and primary processing factories involved in wild fish. After, when you go down in Denmark and in France, because of course they have a lot of fish produced in Norway, but they are only 5 million consumers. And the market is not where they're produced. In some way we have the same fact in Greece, because of course we produce a lot of sea bass and sea bream, but a big part of this has to be exported. So many connections that we have seen in wild fish from Norway, but also farm fish from Norway, in some way can be a good illustration for our topic today. This company is very involved in environmental friendly sustainability activity, because they are connected to a wide result, and they try to have it sustainable. So of course they are working to get it sustainable, but also to have a very, very good image in the market of Europe. We have some data of the volumes. Briefly, it's 3 main species: cod, haddock and saithe. The others are bycatch, because when they try to collect cod or haddock or saithe, of course, they catch also some other species, and they have to bring everything at the harbor. The total volumes they own in their own fleet is around 50,000 tons, and they collect also the same volume from external fishermen. So they handle 100,000 tons of raw material a year from Norway. Our location in France, we have 2 main locations for processing. One in north of France, Boulogne-sur-Mer. We are close to England, close to Benelux, and of course connected to French market. The other location is in south of France, close to the Spanish border, and they are very efficient to cover all the south part of France. We are connected more to the north part of France. And they have also connected to the south factory all the trout farms which are present. Some pictures of the activities, but for you, I think that you know those type of activity. Here you have an example of the range of products that the group is producing. It comes from fresh or frozen whole fish. When we speak whole fish, it's not really whole because in wild fish, it's obligation to have it gutted. After you have all fillets and portion and so on, and after we can go to more elaborated products with portions, with paste, fish paste, and also with sushi, to give example of products. All of the range also of frozen products, and example of cutting that we will go back on this topic. Another point they are working on is on a brand, and I think that this example is also interesting for you. They say, okay, we are Norwegian. What is specific? We are from Northern Norway. What the consumer expect in Europe market? They expect nature. They expect very authentic origin and so on. And they are working on a specific premium brand, which say, okay, this is from Arctic and premium freshness brand of product, and we are working to all the supply chain internally in the group to be able to offer that to the consumer. Now, the location of Boulogne-sur-Mer, which was called Vivier Marin, and since the beginning of September has switched to Norway Seafood Boulogne. It's a company which is 10 years old, created in 2002. At the beginning, we had as shareholder a big wholesaler in Boulogne, and Marinades, which is now the major company in salmon industry, and which is now our competitor in Boulogne. But at the beginning, they were our shareholder. Presently, our activity is to make first and primary and secondary processing on fresh fish. We don't process frozen, we don't process cooked product and so on, and they will explain later why. Our goal at the beginning was to say, okay, fish industry in Boulogne and in France 10 years ago was very still deeply different of meat industry. And all fish industries thought that we were out of the rules of meat. And we know that that's not real, because the consumer, when they go in the stores, in the retail to buy, they can buy cheese, they can buy meat, they can buy fish, and they just select what they prefer. And all the major trends that drive the other productions, can be meat, can be cheese, and other products, are also deeply concerning the industry of fish processing. This means that some words were completely out of the business 10 years ago. Quality, traceability, hygiene, transparency, service to consumers, ISO standard, and so on. 10 years ago, it was something that people said, no, it's stupid. What we know after 10 years is that all the company doesn't go on this way, progressively are out of the business. If you take all the frame of Boulogne-sur-Mer, which is a major location for fish, Boulogne-sur-Mer handles 350,000 tons of fish per year. It's a major place, and with a deep evolution, because all the industry is moving, and all this move is driven by the market. What are the core business of the company? Primary processing is mainly all filtering, trimming, deboning, skinning, and so on. And after, to go more in secondary processing, is more all portioning, packing, deboning, specific deboning, specific cutting, and so on. The main species that we are producing are salmon. Till now, even if we are on a subsidiary company of wild fishing company, salmon is still the biggest species we are processing. We are processing around 60% of our production in salmon because it's the main fish consumed in retail chain. After it's cod and a small activity in other farm species, sea bass, sea bream, and sturgeon. Cod and sace are the main species in wild. We also haddock, ling, and miscellaneous species. Some picture of the trout farms in the south of France from the group. From picture of the factory, but maybe we will go back if you have some questions. So this is a main view of the first primary processing unit of our factory in Boulogne, where we make all filtering, skinning, trimming, some deboning, and so on. And the second part, when we make more portioning and map packing. Some key data. The factory is 2,200 square meters. It represents 4.5 thousand tons of final products per year with less than 100 people. As I told you, we are still at between 60 and 65% of salmon. Maybe this is not so interesting for you. This is important. You know, since the beginning, we are deeply connected to retail chain, and we try to work with them to say, species per species, what are the requirements that the retail chain collects with their final consumer. And we look for them, what are the best solutions to fill this target and to get them a good turnover in their stores. And by this way, we had a lot of return of feedback from the market and from the final consumer. You have some example of secondary processing that we have. Presently, you have, for example, salmon portion, which is a standard in MAP in France, and we are developing the same in cod now, because of course this knowledge was from salmon, and now we say, okay, why for salmon, why for chicken, why for pork, and why not for cod? So we try now to implement all the knowledge that we have from salmon on other species, clearly species of the group, haddock, cod, sace, but also some other species. Example you are more concerned in, we made some tests with Aquanord in north of France on sea bream fillets and also sea bass fillets that you can compare with wild fish, sace fillets, cod loins, scallops, red mullets. You can see that a lot of combination can be made, but it's still fresh meat at the beginning. And after you have more standard and the large, we have to keep in mind that the biggest part of the market is still raw material in bulk. Can be processed in fillet, can be processed in steaks, can be processed in portion, can be whole fish, but still now the major part of the market for all the species, including salmon, it's bulk market with ice. Now we will go on some specific topics that we have to develop. So if we speak about fish processing technology, we have to be very clear that it's a huge industry and you have different units, different knowledge, and nobody can be involved in all this knowledge. For example, processing sector, fresh is different from frozen, frozen is different from smoked, from cooked, from canned, from salted. You have a wide range of processing, and we cannot be each one, we cannot be in all the range. So each one has to select what is the key target we want to be in. Processing level, usually we have three level, the common language is to say primary processing is just raw material in bulk, whole fish, eventually gutted, dehydrated, and no more. When you go on filleted, skin off, pin bone off, portion and so on, it's more secondary processing. And after the first processing, first level is more value-added processing. It means that fish is just a part of the recipe. Primary and secondary fish is quite exclusive part of the product. The fish origin is very important because farmed and wild cannot be run on the same way. I have the experience in my factory of processing 60–70% of farm and 30–40% of wild. Completely different. Because on farm you have a big advantage. You can forecast, you can organize, you can work on standardization of your quality, your handling, your supply chain. On wild it's very difficult because the fish is in the sea and he is swimming and you cannot forecast when, where, how, too many operators, too many steps. You have a great advantage. You are in fish farm industry and it means that all the supply chain and after all the steps can be more driven than just say it is as it is. Okay, so I joined completely the presentation made by Triton. All the topics he was presenting to you is a topic that I feel every day in my factory with the farm products that we are processing. Now we have in primary processing some standards in the business industry to speak about trimming and step of filtering, and after to speak about skinning level, which are the main points, first main point for processing. So in trimming, you know, I will give you, I have in the final presentation a standard, but we have a standard with letters. The first letter, trim A, means you just produce fillet with a machine and we let everything on the fillet. We just remove the main bones, the tail, and the head. Trim B is the first level where we decrease the yield. We put cost of processing on it because we just trim, which means we remove the swim blade, we remove the big part of fat connected to peritoneum area, but we try to have just a more nice product with a maximum yield and as minimum as possible time consuming for processing. Third step, trim C, trim D, it means quite clear product without any bone, without any fat deposit, but still with skin. And after, you have three levels. In skinning, you have one extreme and the right, it's just skin, but we call it light skinning because we want just to remove the skin and to have the higher yield that we can have. On this type of skinning of salmon, we lose 7–8% of weight of the fillet. For smokers, we produce the left image, the same machine, but not the same adjustment. But the difference is that on the left part, we have between 12 and 15% decrease of yield. You imagine the price, the effects of the price. So all these steps are very important to define, and I think that for your industry, it's also important to work on this question of standards. To say when you discuss with industry, you discuss with retail chain, if you want to develop more primary and secondary process products, you have also to work as an industry on the standards. So the competition is clear. You are not in bad situation with customers which will ask some things and not clear, and you are not on the good level. It's important to have this type of clear definition, and you have now the maturity and the size to be able to do that. But I don't know, I've never seen everything in France, in the group, about what are the standards of CBAS and CBRIM if you want to go on primary processing. That's the first point you can work on. This is the standard frame of trimming. As I told you, you have the trim A, and some, even in trim A, doesn't remove this part. Some remove. And step by step, you say what to remove, you have to remove, until you go to trim C. And if you want to go to trim E, you also have to remove other parts. But those standards have to be defined. And even in salmon, each major company has made some details because they are not all over on the same specific definition. Because I told you, for example, people who make processing trim A in Boulogne-sur-Mer doesn't remove that. This is a brand of one Norwegian company. They remove. But this point, it means labor cost, it means 2-3% decrease of yield, and it's not the same product for the final consumer. So if people begin to say, okay, we want trim A in CBAS, what is trim A or CBAS? Maybe you have to work on that and to define. Now, of course, all the steps for processing, we quickly discussed that we are doing that in our factory in Boulogne. But if we say step by step what it is, of course, we have the first step, which is in whitefish made upstream. It's not considered as processing. It's just made on the boat for CBAS CBRIM. It's a specific processing step. It's not made in farming and in harvesting. But first step, of course, is gutting and maybe deheading. The standard in wild is head off, gut off. And the second standard is just gut off. We call it VAT. After that, we can make all the filleting. The key point for that is that filleting is a processing step which weighs the most heavy losses in yield, and also which is the most expensive in labor if we don't have automation. After this step of fitting, I show you, you have all the steps of trimming, and you have to define standard, but trimming means we have to remove all specific area of the fillet to have a very clear standard connected to the requirement of your customer. After that, we have deboning, and deboning, we have two ways. Pity is that the only automation presently existing is in salmon. By deboning machine, we have deboning machine which can remove all the bone without affecting the fillets. In whitefish and in CBAS and CBRIM, we try that. No machinery presently existing. We try by hand. It can be done, but very difficult to make in large series and very time consuming. And the standard in whitefish by this way means that we have to cut the part of the flesh which are connected to the remaining bones after fitting. After deboning, we can have skinning, and skinning has to be made after deboning. If you make it first, your fillets are not strong enough to be able to be processed by deboning. You will destroy your fillets if you have already skinned them before deboning. After we have all the portioning steps, portioning steps can be manual, and it's a lot developed currently, for example, in cod and haddock, where they are a standard now, which is cod loins and haddock loins. Presently, consumers in France are quite don't completely switch from fillets to loins. And the industry had to find a solution for all the byproduct of this cutting. But it's a specific cutting made by hand, and portioning machine will go deeper, are more efficient to make a very standardized product per weight or per length. After you have all the step of packing, of course, packing in bulk with ice, everybody knows. Sometimes it's not so easy because, for example, some consumers now want specific packing. For example, you have in France a retailer which is named Leclerc, which doesn't want yet EPS boxes. They just want polypropylene boxes. Some customers want products with gel pack and not ice because they want to transport it in dry condition and when you have melting ice in polyethylene boxes. So even just bulk is not so easy because you can have some specific requirement, but it's not a key issue in terms of techniques. After you have all the development of MAP, and MAP has really started in Europe and maybe in France, middle of this past 10 years, around 2004, 2005, 2006. And all the sources have switched. If you went on the retail chain in France, beginning of the century, you had quite known MAP products. And MAP product has a bad perception from the final consumer because it was used just to sell the unsold product in the traditional store. Some retail chains say, okay, we want to make it on a more professional, efficient manner, which means we don't make it in the stores, we make it in industrial company, and it's not just with a tray and the skin, it's a tray with modified atmosphere inside and with industrial process, which can give them much more guarantee in terms of freshness, in terms of use by date, in traceability, and so on. So after this evolution, they have developed a lot, all the part of ready to take in the store. 10 years ago, you had only the traditional counter with ice, and now in all the big hypermarkets, you have two places, ready to take, and the standard usual corner for products on ice. This product is very, very sensitive to a lot of legal aspects that doesn't affect so deeply bulk. And it's a way to create presently value in the fish industry. After, you have also a part which is not yet very developed, but we think that it could rise a lot, is all vacuum packing. Because all MAP processing is creating a lot of costs, because of the cost of the packaging and the cost of the process. And you can have quite the same service to final consumer cheaper by vacuum packing. So we think that vacuum is also an alternative that has to be worked and developed. Okay. About a value-added product, it's not primary and secondary processing. It means that we have to think ready-to-meal products, and we have to keep in mind that it means we are not yet in the fish industry. It can be connected to the fish industry, but fish is only one part of the recipe. And we are switching on another business. If you make the connection with meat, slaughtering area where you produce all the fillets and that, it's not the same that the factory where you produce pizza and ready meals. It's a different set in the industry, and it's not driven by the same actors and by the same operators. So it's important to say farming, slaughtering, primary processing, secondary processing, on some way you have a continuous line, and the industry can be directly involved on more value-added product connected to ready-to-meals. It means more combination, cooperation with actors which are already in this type of industry. And it means You have a list of examples. It can be product, means, paste, different raw material combined because you can add vegetable, rice, that's the type of sushi, flour, and many things. And you have also the specific fish processing like smoked, bread, salt, and carne, which are still fish, but it's not usually the same operator which are dealing this. If you see a company like presently Delpierre, which is the major smoking company connected to La Berry and so on, it's not Marine Harvest. Marine Harvest delivers this company. Even if Marine Harvest has some smoking factories, they are not a big player on this unit because it's too far from their core business and core activity. Now, when we want to process, of course, we have to think about cost, because if we expect value, we expect that the value is higher than the cost we will engage for that. And I'm sorry, but don't forget, sea bass, sea bream are not salmon. For two main reasons. First is the size. All processing steps, even you make it by hand, manual, or automatically, each step for processing means one fish. The standard on salmon is 4 to 5 kilos per head fish. The standard in bream and bass is more connected to 300, 400 grams. It means that you need to process 10 times more fish to have the same outlet. And secondly, you have a very big point to think about. It means that you have in trimming an average yield, if we say trim A, around 45, 47 in sea bass, sea bream, by the test that we made in Villemar.
By hand.
By hand. If you go in automatic, you go at
45, 42.
45, 42. And in salmon, we are in trim A up than 70%. It's an enormous difference. And it means that salmon has opened many doors because it's an easy to process product. And we are running after this experience on other species. I told you that we are trying to develop in cod this expertise. But even cod is difficult because cod, in 15 years, we are close to salmon. But after, in terms of size, the standard size of cod is not 4 kilo plus. It's more 1 to 2 kilo. And it means just by this aspect of size, for example, all the fixed weight portions, it's difficult even in cod. So it means that even if we have a lot of knowledge, after each species has to say, okay, how can we combine those knowledge connected to the specificity of the product that we want to process. We cannot just copy-paste. We can just say, okay, what can be adapted to our business? If I go to cost, of course, the other key point is to say we have to value 100% of the product. And it means that all the valuation of byproducts in the step of processing and all the definition of the processing inside has to be very deeply analyzed to find the good combination. I will give you an example of that on salmon. For example, when we have then at the beginning of the factory in 2003, 2004, when we began to develop a lot of portion fixed weight salmon in retail, we had the problem of the tail. We said, okay, we produce fixed weight, but we always a tail that is on some way removed. And it was 5 to 7% of the weight. And we couldn't find a solution to have a good valuation of these tails. And we made a lot of exchange and sharing with the retail chain. And progressively, we have to completely change. And we say, now, okay, we still produce fixed weight portion in salmon, but we also produce a fixed weight tail, large, 300 grams. Why? Because it's not a byproduct. It's a product because this part of the fillet is guaranteed pin mode off. It's guaranteed pin mode off because we don't have it naturally any bones in this area. It's a nice fillet and it's a product. But at the beginning it was a byproduct. And so to work on the way to process and sometimes to adapt, and the key objective can be a successful way to say how can we value 100% of our fish. After, we have to keep in mind every time that, as I told you, if we think about processing, if we think about cost and we want to create value, we have to keep in mind every time that we want to create not a value, a remaining value for us. It means that if we create a value that is not enough perceived by consumer, he won't pay for it and we don't create value. And I have the same example back in salmon when we have begun to process portion fillets, all portion fillets and portion and fillet in bulk. Standard was a premium. So everybody say, okay, it's skin off. Not the extreme, but skin off. 10% loss of yield. And a processing cost. Now what's happened? All the bulk of salmon is skin on and scale on. Why? Because not any consumer was ready to pay 15% more just to have the skin off. But at the beginning it was to create value. Yes, we create value, but this value was not perceived by the final consumer and we don't get the payback. So we say, okay, we go back to another way of processing. And all those adjustments are not stable. Since 2 or 3 years, we see that the crisis that affects all Europe, it's changing also the trend of the consumer. Where the consumer were ready to pay for fun, now they are much more focused to, I am paying €1, what do I get for €1? And some standard level of quality that we had, we're thinking to reduce a little bit because now consumer is not ready to pay for that. And for example, the trim D, which is completely trimmed without any fat and so on. So markets and consumers say, okay, go to trim C. Nice product, but 2, 3, 4% better yield. And now the consumer is not ready to pay for this tiny difference of aspect. So it's very, very important to keep in mind this type of reflection. Cost calculation, I will have to ask you because it's not on the PowerPoint, just to give me by key at the end of presentation the sample of cost calculation that we made in our factory for salmon and for sea bass, just to show you how this type of topics are illustrated in our business daily to create calculation costs and to help to define the good level adjustment that we have to work on. Key cost analysis. I told you first point the fish size is essential because all the steps that I show you, tilting, gutting, trimming, until we go to final packing, all steps are unit steps connected to one fish or to one fillet, and the size is essential. Yield, we have already said. Value chain and supply chain, it's also a very important point that when we say, okay, we can make all those steps, after the question is to say where and when and how. You had all the presentation previously from Keaton about all problem of pré-rigor and rigor mortis. I will show you the draft later, but just to make a quick summary. At the beginning, the filleting industry in Norway was working just a little because they were not creating real value. The labor costs in Norway were very expensive. They didn't create a perceived value for the market, so they were just producing fish and selling in South Europe, where even the primary processing was done. And 10 years ago, they began to work internally in all the procedure and all the protocol of harvesting, slaughtering, processing to get prairie-gore fillets, which means that they were using their filtering line on fish which was not alive, but just slaughtered, and the fillets, the muscle, were still not in rigor. It means that during the processing, you didn't create damage on texture, you didn't create gapping and problem of the fillet. They place it in bulk, and they send it to the market. It was premium products for the market. By this way, they have created value. And one part of processing which was made upstream, because they have worked internally all the steps they could manage locally, they create a premium product which is still now a reference in the market. But it's linked to total supply chain analysis to say how can we improve, which step can be changed, and with a global view, because we cannot speak about just farming or just about everything. We have to keep an overview of all the steps and to say how can we deal with that and where is the best place to do that. You have on this part also a second point is the automation. Some process can be made handily, some process can be automatized, and automation is also a key point. Of course, hand filtering, hand deboning, and so on small fish is extreme cost, labor cost consumption. If we have automation of those key points, it's much more easy to get product with an acceptable price for the final consumer, because we don't touch the yield, but we touch the labor costs which are extreme. We touch the ability to produce large volumes, which is also a problem. I go back to deboning. We try to make hand deboning on sea bass. Okay, we can do that. Productivity of one people, 3-4 kilo per hour. Imagine you are producing more than 100,000 tons. It's not possible to develop it at an industrial scale if we don't have automation. And if we go back to salmon, salmon had, after the step of filtering on prairie-gore, they have developed a second step. At the beginning, they were filtering, but all the trimming, they had no knowledge to make it automatically. It means they couldn't make it upstream because it was too costly. In 2004, 2005, two companies have developed automatic system for trimming of salmon. All this step has moved forward from local South or Central Europe activity and industry to Norway. Because by this way, they create part of the value themselves, and they get part of the value creation because they have found a technical solution. As you say, they had a problem. Until they found a solution, this problem was limiting them in their development. As soon as they have found a solution to solve this problem, changed completely all the organization of the industry. And now they are delivering the market in prairie-gore fillets trimmed. They still have one problem they cannot solve, deboning. They don't know how to debone prairie-gore fillet or just in the beginning of rigor. So deboning is still further down in the supply chain, just because technical adjustments are not solved. I am sure I can predict you if at one time they find a solution to make automatic, efficient deboning on very fresh fish upstream, they will do it. Because by this way, this value creation step will be for them and not for the bottom line of the industry. Okay? Because of some problems that they cannot have a trim, what did they do? All the major group, Icelandic and Norwegian, have invested on the market. We are now, since 3 years, subsidiary company of a Norwegian company, and Marine Harvest in Boulogne is a subsidiary company of Norwegian group, and you have the same from Icelandic group. So when we think about cost analysis and so on, we have to think about, yes, it's not only cost. The costs are not the same in Norway, in Denmark, in France, in Greece. And we have to make the combination between all technique steps, quality of the product, costs, associated costs, to find the better combination possible for the industry. Cost calculation, I will give you example, but it's on separate files. This is an example of full automatic activity in the group in Norway. This factory is processing 2 species a year, no more. They are producing between 10 and 20 tons of fillet a day, and you have quite no operator, which is not a machine operator. You can see those people are fixed on machine, and all is automatic. It means that it's in Norway. I do the same job in Boulogne-sur-Mer by hand. If they cannot do upstream, I do that. If they can do that automatically, they do. So I fillet salmon, I fillet cod by hand in Boulogne-sur-Mer. I will explain more after a while. But of course, as soon as we can have 5, 10 cuts with a knife, and that's finished. No more time. No, they want to have a minimum time consumption, and you can see that in this line you have quite non-Norwegian. In factories in Norway, they have 80 to 85% of non-Norwegian people. It's explained why they don't make it handy.
Where they come from?
All the area, Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, and so on, and also all Asian, Korean, Thailand, and so on. But they have to get people because they have full employment. It's very difficult condition, labor and so on. They cannot go on hand work. Now, of course,
Any questions up until now?
you can stop at any time if you have a question. Cost is processing, and cost is also investment. And I am back saying, okay, you all know that the key in investment are land, equipment, and building facilities. But don't forget that it's not only that. And of course, we all know that we have some processing equipment, but a factory such as Villiers Marin, the land was quite peanuts. The building, the main building and the cheap storage, we say it's the building. It was 2 million euros. But all the other processing equipment, IT, machine, portioning machine, and so on, is also 2 million euros. So investment, it's important to get in mind that many lines can be forbidden at the beginning when we think about a project, and more we want to be large in the capacity, more this investment will explode, and more it will be difficult to pay it. Factory as Villiers Marin in Boulogne-sur-Mer, it's 4 million euros, and we need between 3.5 4,000 tons of final product a year just to pay that. So it means a very big scale. the new factory of Marine Harvest is 11 million euro investment. They need 10,000 tons of fish, final product a year. If not, they cannot have the payback of that. So don't forget, it's very many people in our business lost a lot of money because they were not unclear. They said, okay, we can make it, okay, it's not huge and so on. If you look all the parameters you have to address to be able to be one thing, immediately you arrive to very specific activity and very large scale factory. If not, you cannot be profitable. This is the image of the factory in Boulogne-sur-Mer, and you can see what I told you, primary and secondary processing. We have 4 parts: chill storage, primary processing, secondary processing, packaging, picking, and delivery. It's quite a simple unit, but expensive and not so easy to fill in volumes. I have partly addressed this point. After, when you have to think about cost and investment, you have to think about return on investment, and I have largely developed that labor cost. It's important, and it's clearly connected to productivity. Product where you have, in terms of labor, 100, 200 kilo final product per hour, the final price for the consumer is sustainable. I made some calculation price of some product. It was 3-4 kilo per hour. Crazy. We arrived on some processing products, just in processing costs, 10 euro per kilo. And I don't have yet paid the raw material. Non-consumer will pay for that. Because the raw material, fish is expensive. You have to know that in French market, you have the first level price in meat and 3-4 euro per kilo of final product. It's not the price of my raw material income in the factory. And I have to pay all the process, and after to add the taxes and the transport costs, you have product at 4-5 euro in stores in meat. So fish industry has always to think about the balance. If we put line of cost, decrease yield, increase yield, and the bottom line, is it sustainable, and do we have a customer for that? And Sébastien is deeply concerned for that because of what I told you, small size and poor yield compared to other products. Now, I think we have largely developed the problem of size, but size is not only size of the fish. If we go on secondary processing, we have also the unit size of packaging. Same, I give you back an example. When we have initiated mass production in our factory, the target was a trace of 400 grams. Just the packing cost, trays, film, gas, and so on, for this was around 40 cents of euro. Progressively, the retail chain said, no, go to 300 target, go to 250, go to 200, go to 150. Why? Because the consumer is looking the cost price per kilo, but also the unit price of purchase. And because as fish is expensive, retail during some years say, okay, we will sell 1 unit, but at cheaper price. At the same time, the processing cost was rising a lot. And when I switched to 150 grams, thus the packaging cost was close to €1.50. I say, okay, at one time, the consumer go back to the price per kilo. And now we are quite stable at 250 grams. But this is dynamic. I know that if the market change, we will have back to adapt and to make this calculation to think about size. Because, of course, I am giving a simple example. It's the cost of the packaging, but also the cost of the machinery, the cost of the labor. If I produce in a production line 150 grams product and not 400 grams product with the same tool and the same team, I have 1/3 of the productivity. Who pays that? I have to put it in my calculation price, including also all the indirect costs that are still running. So after, it's very important, I show you the different steps that we have. I show you a picture of the factory. It's very important to have a very good conception, through analysis of the step and combination of the step when you have a processing activity. You know, I show you, and already the factory is saying, okay, we have 4 main areas. But I have much more than 4 areas in terms of steps. And it's very important to have a very good understanding, definition of what are the steps, the organization of your tools, your factory. Because after, when you have a clear view of all the steps, you are ready to make acute cost calculation. If you are not very clear on this point, it's very difficult to have very efficient cost calculation because it's too unstable. You mix things which are not coherent between all. For example, here, I have fitting area. I know that this unit is driven by people because they are making hand fitting. So I know that for all cost calculation, I have to think about human productivity per people and to think about the management of these people to be able to guarantee that they maintain the target in number of fish per hour and in yield. After, here it's machine. Reflection is completely different. We say, okay, this machine has this capacity. It means that it's a machine who gives the tempo, the timing. And we have just to think about what product, how many people to maintain this capacity. Not at all the same understanding. If I want to make a price without this specific analysis, it's very difficult to be acute enough to be able to be very precise, because at the final stage, consumers are always speaking about 5 cents, 10 cents, not €1 when you have to discuss price with the market. So all these analyses are very important because as soon as you touch at one step in yield, in organization and so on, quickly you are not speaking of 1 or 2 cents. You are speaking of 1, 2, 3, 4 years on some specific product. So very important to have this deep analysis. Factory capacity, excuse me, go back. So clear definition and splitting of all the steps, it's important. The discussion between automation and human labor. I told you, normally a cod or salmon should be filleted in Norway, because clearly it's much efficient to make it by automation in large-scale factory. And I am still making some fillets. Why? Because in fresh sector, the market does not need only fish. They need service. They need to have their stores filled every day. And if you make some steps upstream, many times you have deviation between the time you take the decision and the time the product arrives on the market, and the market has to adapt to this deviation. They don't want to adapt. So our mission, when we make it by hand, we say, okay, the value creation is not because technically it's more efficient. The value creation is because we give a service to the customer. He wants his fillet every day. So if you have batch of whole fish in Boulogne-sur-Mer, easy to say, please send 2 pallets to make it and to say, your order is fulfilled. But I cannot make it by automation because it's very unstable. sometimes one pallet of small size, sometimes two pallets of big size, sometimes. So by automation, I need standard, large area, large volume, and by hand, I can be very flexible, but it's more costly. And you have also to keep this type of example in mind to say, why do I make it by hand? Why do I make it by automation? Where do I make it? Because, for example, clearly, Norwegian cannot make it by hand upstream, so they invest downstream to the market, where the cost is, labor cost is lower, and this step is much more flexible because after the processing step, you have 1 day of delivery, no more. Now, forecasting what and when. I told you, you have a big advantage compared to wild fish in farm product. Because to run fresh business, fresh fish industry is very connected, I just told you, to the market. The market doesn't care our products. The market needs fish. The best fish at the best price at the time they need it. If not, they don't care and they don't purchase. That's simple. Now the problem is that the market needs fish, but cannot predict now how many kilos per product they will need in 10 days. It means that they make global trends, and after with those global trends, you have to run all your supply chain to be able to be very, very close to the final expectation of the market. And that's also a reason why Norwegian company has invest locally close to the market, because the timing between slaughtering and the timing to go to the market, 3 days, is too long to make the final steps, even if they find a solution. So they make all the steps they can make by automation when they have heavy yield losses, because by this way they can also have value for the byproduct and so on. But they need to have a final adjustment rendered product close to the market to be able to give a service. This means that, for example, in salmon, we receive 2 products, fillet and gutted fish, and we have 60, 70 different reference of final products that we can produce per day, every day. So it's important to work forecasting. You have the forecast of the trend of the market, you have the forecast of your farm management, you can work on the forecast of the factory, but after, very important to connect everything. Because if we say, okay, we have a forecast for the farms, but not with a clear connection with all the steps, slaughtering, processing, logistics, secondary processing, back to logistics, when, why, and so on, you won't be efficient. And apparently, it's a key point for value in fresh business, to be able to say, okay, we work on our organization, we work on our forecasting, to be able to say yes to the consumer when he needs something, even if he decides today to make an order today to be delivered tomorrow. On this forecasting, it's also important to be able to check. Many times forecasting is disrupted by just details, because sometimes it's logistic which doesn't connect it. Because sometimes it's just you have a limiting factor in your factory, and if you don't identify this specific topic limiting factor, you are not able to deliver. I have an example here. It's our portioning and deboning line on salmon. I know that this type of machine is able to say, okay, the portioning line is able to process 9 fillets per minute. And I know that the skinning in the inlet is also capable to make this. But I know that the knowledge here is very specific. The ladies who make the control of deboning, because you still have 2, 3, 4, 5% the remaining bonds, you have people who are removing the remaining ones. It's a specific knowledge. If I say, okay, I have one day a forecast to have this machine working 24 hours. Technically, it's possible. I can have huge volumes. I say, okay, I can have interinsular workers and so on to make this forecast. Okay, we have it. And I forgot that I have a specific knowledge. If I have only 2 people which are trained to make this type of deboning, and I manage the global view of the factory production on 24 hours, I will be in big trouble because of just a detail. And sometimes it's this, sometimes it's a truck, sometimes it's a problem of income. For example, we are many times very, very limit time. Many times we receive in the morning product that we process and we sell in the morning. If we have a delay of 2 hours, all the forecasting can be out. So it's very, very important if you work on processing to be very, very accurate in your analysis, to be able to be really able actors for the market. Because the market, when you say, okay, I will forecast, I have the fish, I have everything, and you forget one step. Well, you have all the capacity to make forecast efficient, but you forget one step. It means that your customer doesn't have the fish in the stores, and he never forget that. You will pay it for 6 months before he say, okay, I am confident again to try again. So forecasting in this activity is very, very, very important. And you are in fish farming, your fish are in cages. They are not swimming somewhere in the sea. It's much more convenient. After, it's also very important to say it's difficult to go in these steps without a very efficient IT system, because we have so many data to work with that I cannot manage my factory with just a stencil. We have IT and powerful IT systems to be able to run this type of activity in efficient manner, because you have very powerful database for all the combination of labor costs, packaging costs, processing steps, and so on. You have all your standards, but you have also to check every day. Where are you compared to this standard? It means also very sophisticated means, because if you need to make it by hand, you have more people making calculation than people making the business.
Are there any specific software for that?
No. When we started, we had no software. Currently, you have a company, Marel, who has a software which is quite good, called Innova. But the problem is they are not enough connected downstream. And after, of course, you have some KPI which are the core KPI of this business. Productivity, I told you, because it's connected to labor. Yield, factory charge level, I told you all the factory involved in primary, secondary processing are big units, and those big units are very expensive. So it's also very important to have it at the good charge level. If you have the factory which is used at 20 or 30% of his total capacity, I don't need complex system to tell you it won't be at any time profitable. If it is too close to his total capacity, I can tell you this factory will be in trouble, because he will lose the flexibility he needs in this fresh business to be able to adapt small weeks, high weeks, and be able to adapt to the cycle of fresh. But factory charge level is a very important KPI.
KPI is key performance indicator.
Yes.
And what is the acceptable charge level?
The best factory charge level for me, it should be at 60, 65.
65.
Why? Because other than that, you won't be enough flexible to adapt to the variation of the market, and lower, you are not,
Making money.
yes, you don't make money because you are not enough efficient to pay all the indirect costs associated to your factory. Okay? After, you have all the targets that are very important, because when we are speaking yield and productivity and so on, it's very important also to be clear. You have the, when you monitor a line, you have the instant productivity of a line. To say, okay, the line is working. I told you, 9 fillets per minute. But the real life of the factory is not 10 days open, 10 hours open, 10 hours at 9 product, because you have to launch your factory in the morning, you have to change some batches, you have to have some breaks, you have to have some adjustment and so on, and the real time consumed is close to 70% of this 100. And if we are not clear when we are discussing yield, KPI, and productivity and so on, what are we speaking about? It's very important to say, different to say what is the average target that we can guarantee in a full month or a full year, and the instant monitoring control to say, is the line running at a good level? After, indirect cost splitting, of course, is essential. Because if you don't have the good splitting, you will produce the products where you lose money, and you won't sell any product where you earn money. It's very important to have this good splitting. We made a big mistake at the creation of Villiers and Villiers de France. We said, okay, simple. Because some customers were discussing with us, okay, we are discussing about indirect cost per kilo of product. It looks simple, and it was efficiently working during 8-9 years. And then one time we said, surprising, we were never working with so much volumes, but we are also losing money. What happened? Just because the splitting of the costs were not efficient. And it means that all the customers, we were very competitive on the product where we were losing money, of course. So the market, go where you are very competitive. And we were losing money because by that splitting, all the consumers went on our range of products, on the very time-consuming products, where I had very poor productivity per kilo. And it means that my splitting cost has been completely refound, redesigned, and since now 5 years, it's efficient. Maybe the rule I have today will have to be resplitted in 5 years or 10 years. I don't know, but presently we have adapted because the past one was effective, simple enough. At one time, the market, our activity has evolved. We saw it was not efficient enough, and we had to find the good one, because splitting of the indirect costs create your cost price, so your competitivity on the market. And if you are not acute on that, sure, you will produce, because you will win markets where you are losing money. Because you will be very competitive, but you are not competitive, you are losing money. And after, of course, you have to monitor claims. Because as I told you, when you make one error in your business and you have a claim for the customer, the problem is not the claim. It's the cost you will pay for this claim for the long time. Because people in the market, they have downstream in the retail chain, in the restaurant company and so on, they have to run their own business, and when we make one mistake, we can say, okay, it's not our fault and so on. They don't claim. And for €1 of claim, maybe you will have a cost for your company of €100. It's very important to to be efficient when you are monitoring your claims, and maybe also sometimes to define what type of claim, because not all the claims are not the same. And you can, when you have good knowledge of your market and your consumer and so on, you can create to say some stupid claims are essential, and those ones you have to be focused maximum to avoid them. Some others, okay, have a cost, but the investment that you have to solve this will be much more than the cost of it. So it's important to monitor your claims, to be able to say, okay, I am efficient. Is this claim essential for my customer? Yes or no? Because if it is essential, I have to spend more money inside to adapt my organization to be able to fulfill. If not, I say, okay, that's it. That's the cost to pay sometime, because 100% satisfaction of the customer is not possible. But claim level, claim monitoring is a KPI for industry. Now we go back to product characteristics. You had a long development from Clayton, and I agree a lot to that. Just to make some more downstream view of that. For us, we say we have two main parameters to characterize the products: factual ones and subjective ones. And the factual ones usually are connected to legal requirements. When you are speaking about unit weight, about size, about average type of packaging and so on, it's factual, many times connected to legal requirement, but all those steps can be a claim, and as I told you, each step, if you don't have one point that you have under control in your business, it's all the business which is affected. It's the principle of the limiting factor. You can have a very, very good factory and everything running perfectly. You make a mistake somewhere on packaging, you can destroy all your effort. So it's important just to remind that all those points are the daily point that has to be under control. After, you have some points which are much more subjective and that you have to address as farmers upstream in your activity. As you told, you can work on freshness, not only because it has been slaughtered today, but how many times do we keep it in the chip storage before to sell? What type of transport, what type of slaughtering and primary packaging and routine do we have to have the better chance to get this fish extra as long as possible? You can work on all the aspects of protocol, of harvesting, killing, and after handling between the live fish in the cages up to your factories. We were discussing this morning about healing stress, about the fact that stress has a deep effect on the quality of the product. But I know that this is only one tiny part. And I know that when we are slaughtering fish, we go on the cage, we concentrate the fish, we catch this fish. It's a whole boat. It's a whole process. And it means that if it takes 2 hours in good condition of handling and so on, or if it takes 5 hours, it's not at all the same product at the end. So you have many possibilities in your core business to have a deep impact on the product at the final steps. And salmon did that. Salmon did that. If they were working on slaughtering farms with Trelleborg fillets, it was because they were including all those steps to say how to send the best product to be able to be transported, processed, handled by the final market, and so on in good condition, because it's high-price product. So you have effect on freshness, on texture. It has been said on visual aspect. Just visual aspect. You have some fish which has low value just because some fish has been hurted. You have a box, controller teams in the stores open. They see 2 or 3 products that should be rejected before because of deformities, because of not clean, because they don't care. They don't care. It's always the same, a limiting factor. When you send 100 boxes, you have 2 boxes which are not okay. The control Tom sees that. It's 100 boxes which is out. It's your total image, a professional which is affected. So, on this point, you can say, okay, not key point, but each one is very important. Color is more for wild fish because they don't bleed the fish. The flesh is not white enough. And of course for salmon, because by feeding they monitor clearly a range of color, and if you are not on the range, out. After you have other products, other aspects that we have not to forget. Pollutant contamination. I don't think that our industry is affected, but it's important to be able to prove that. To have record as an industry to say we are out of heavy metals, we are all out of dioxin and all those contaminants which are now increasing in the perception of the final consumer, which is a clear point addressed for fishing industry because some species on some area are very deeply contaminated. And you have an argument as industry if you take the initiative to say, okay, we monitor and we are very good on those points. After you have all the processing steps that we have already developed, and we go forward. Now, about market. Of course, I think that you all know that we don't have one market. We have many markets. And each country can be different. Each type of distribution system can be different. I have some examples. We know that southern market, and from Norwegian, France is a southern market. Maybe not from Greece. The visual aspect is essential. Homogeneous styles, without gapping, good color, good presentation, and so on, makes the difference for purchase. Nordic people, they don't care. It's fish, okay, it's fish. If it is just packed with all the labelling they need and so on, then they don't care. They know they will cook it. So after cooking, it's not the same presentation. They don't focus on presentation as we do in southern countries. Because Italy, Spain, France, we are all very acute on before to take a product, we wanted to have it attractive. After, you have also a different sense about sustainability. Northern market, for example, I have worked during 5 years in Switzerland, exclusively farm code, because at this period, fishing industry didn't have MSC certification on white code. And for Switzerland, they say, we want only sustainable fish. Farm, farm, farm. When the fishing industry got the MSC certification, Switzerland market got back to MSC and stopped farm because of price, but mainly because they found natural origin, which is better, with the sustainability they need. You take the German market, they are very, very focused to organic. You go to England, they are more focused on welfare. And the English market has its own key points that you have to address. After I discuss visual aspects, clearly for all wholesaler, retailer, which we send the product to the final consumer as it is, it's essential
for restaurants, they don't care. Restaurants are much more focused, for example, in precise average weight of the product they are purchasing. And on this point, you have also an advantage. Because more and more they know that they have to be able to say when we put a product on the menu, we have a cost price to create that. For that, we have an average weight of fish, for example, to pay. So they calculate the average price. But as soon as you have variation, they have claims. If it is not enough, the consumer say, oh, not enough to eat. If it is too large, they are losing money. And if it is not homogeneous, they have clear claim because two consumers have different products in the plate. I have the smaller one, you have the big one. So it's stupid, but that's an example. As the opposite in retail, some markets want diversity in map trades because they give the ability to the final consumer to choose, I want a small trade, I want a large trade. So all those points had to be somewhere in mind because you have to target the specific market that you want to go on. And one solution will be good for one market and the bad one for another market. After I didn't spoke a lot about weight in map. I can go back on that. We have many discussions currently about fixed weight because fixed weight now is a standard on many products out of fish and is also a standard in salmon. But when a customer asks you fixed weight, you have to understand minimum weight. It means that if they want a tray of 300 grams, they want a tray of 300 grams. And they don't care if you have 310 or 350. They pay and they want 300 grams. And some other stores are able to say, okay, we want 300 grams plus minus 10 grams. Completely different in terms of organization. And it's very important because if you discuss about fixed weight, average weight, minimum weight, number of pieces, it's totally completely different solution that you can build to go to a market. Yes, a last point between B2B and B2C. B2B customers, which are the main customers that we have in the fresh fish industry, they don't think always as their final consumer. They are much more focused on their margin, on their organization, logistic, how much fish will be destroyed because after use by and so on, and price and so on, that their final consumer will be more aggressive on presentation, on authenticity, variety, and so on. So when you make your analysis and you work on a solution to identify market, it's important to say, who am I discussing with? Can I drive my market by the consumer? For example, when you are going on some brands, it's a way to move the B2B system because they have to put in their requirement things that are connected to the brand. That's the example of organic products, of label rouge products, but also of private brand company. We are a lot involved in Vivier Marin in private brand for retail chain. We have private brand for Carrefour, for Leclerc, for Auchan, and so on. They have completely different behavior and requirement. When they purchase just to you standard product, if they purchase you your brand, or if they work with you on their own brand. Because when it is their own brand, they are very focused on the quality of this brand, on the security of this brand, because if they have a big,
Claim.
not only claim, but
Some-
crisis. It's their name.
But yeah,
It's their name, we see. So they all want private brand. But of course, they are much more focused and they are ready to pay some points. They won't pay for just standard. They say, okay, it's in our store, but it's not us. We cancel this supplier, that's it. If it's their brand, they cannot say we cancel the first supplier. They say we are in the bad units. Okay? Service to market essential because, as I say, it's, of course it's obvious, but we have to keep it in mind every time. Fresh means freshness. As you told, between the live fish and the end of the story, you have somewhere 10, 15, 20 days. Okay? You can work on forecasts to organize your business, but even with forecast, you need some break time because when you are receiving fish from the farms, you are not sending all the fish the same day. People who receive wholesalers in North Europe, they won't receive and process all on the same day. The store won't sell all the day where it arrives. So it means that more and more, when we go to the final step, it means we send to the stores, we turn to the restaurants. More they still have shelf line remaining, more they can run their own business, and they need it. So it's very important to organize always all your steps to be able to give them 1 or 2 days more. Because if not, it's not fresh product. I don't know if it's clear for you this idea, but it's an essential point. You have to work first to enlarge the shelf life of the products, but also to reduce in this total shelf life the time that you kept for yourself and give this time to the market. The extreme is sushi. When people go on sushi, it's 3 days shelf life. And usually the retail chain say, okay, the last day we have to stick and to remove because after we have to show it to the store. They have only 2 days to sell. It's one of the problems to develop sushi in retail chain because it's too short to manage. They don't need 20 days, but 2 days they cannot do their own job.
we're going to, in 5-10 minutes maximum, we are going to stop for lunch, and we can continue after lunch. Okay.
Okay. So here you have some product specification. I already developed that when I talked to you about trim A, B, C, D, pin in, pin out, and so on, but also when I told you about the portioning of salmon to have tail which are not byproduct, which are a real product. Depending the specification you define on your product, you have deep impact on the cost price, but also on the value of the total product. So very, very important anytime to be very, very precise in your specification when we want to go on processed product. To say, okay, it's not just fillet. What fillet? What packing? What size? What color? What? Go in the details. It's very important. Branding, retail, label rouge, organic. Just to give value, label rouge is between 10 and 15% more, and the cost for that is not extreme. So it's much more easy to go and to get 10 or 15% by this way than creating a very premium product. Because a premium product will create more cost than value in many cases. Okay? And organic is more 15, 30% different costs. All the processing costs are quite the same. It's just different costs in farming
and also some adjustment in processing. Our factory is certified organic and label rouge, but the cost of that is very low compared to the advantage that the customer is ready to pay for. All this has been developed already. Design to cost also is sometimes a good way to go on processing. Is to say, I don't work on a product and see at the final step what is the cost of this product. Is to say, okay, I think to this type of market, this family of product, I target this price. Can I find a solution to target this price? By this way, you will have a different analysis, and you are much more sure to get the market because you will be on the market price. Many times, we know the market price before to know the cost price. And packaging weight, I already developed that the target weight, the notion of minimum peaks, average, and so on, are very deep impact on the cost price of the product. Ready meals, I introduced by that to say, okay, but it's at the margin. Non-salmon industry and cod industry and other fish industry make their large volumes in very added value products. Of course, we have opportunity. Of course, we have possibility to develop some activity on that, but it's not the core business. And many times, it's more by connection with people which are already involved in this business. The secondary processing value-added product many times is efficiently used not by the upper level, but by the pure industrial of this type of activity.
Can I ask something? Is it more feasible for sea bass with all these inefficiencies of size and actually yield, and also is it more feasible to go to ready meals than to go in bulk processing to increase value?
My feeling is that for sea bass sea bream, it's more the byproduct who has to be addressed to that, because the raw material is so expensive that it's difficult to put it just as a component in value-added product. But if it is a byproduct, it's still sea bass or sea bream for branding. And if you put in a recipe 5 or 10% of sea bass or sea bream, and it's byproduct of sea bass or sea bream,
okay.
On this way, you go on ready meal with an income which is not the most expensive, but which is perceived by the final consumer as sea bass and sea bream. If you have gap fillet, he said that. Of course, gap fillet, if you have it, what do you do with that? Of course, as it is in primary fresh product, you cannot have a good market, but you can save it in processed product.
Okay.
Okay. You can make fish soup. You can make not barbecue and sushi, but you can make snacking product. Okay, you can go, but don't forget that also ready meals. Quite all the industries that I know on ready meals are much more oriented on frozen products than on fresh, because it's cheaper and much more convenient for them to manage. They have it in store and they don't care to say, okay, I need a delivery tomorrow because today is too early and after it's too late. So they don't care for ready meals, fresh or frozen, because for the final consumer, he doesn't know if it is made from fresh or from frozen. So ready meals is more driven by lower raw material income, and it can be okay? But of course, it's also one point that you have to keep in mind.
I think let's stop here.
Yes. Okay.
And we continue with the final part of the presentation has all the images, so probably it will be, because all these diagrams is like a lot of work to digest. Okay, we stop for 1 hour for lunch. We take a group photo after lunch, and we continue with the final part of the presentation. And it has also some consumer study results from France. So the perception of the consumer, which will be very interesting. And then we have Fanny Cironi with some specialized, let's say, trials on CBUS and CBREAM and how we can extend the life cycle and so on. Thank you. And the lunch will be done in the lobby, in the ground level, to the left-hand side. Okay. We can start.
Okay. So now we'll try to finish and to go more in open discussion. So to go back on all the presentation we have, for me, one of the key points to create value, which means that we can have more value than cost on fresh products. The key point is to work with your aspect to consumer and after practices. This visual aspect is very essential for final consumer. If they don't trust in the products, if they are not attracted by the product, they will remove. Each time I see people from retail stores, they always say, please don't send any map, any products which are not okay, because we are sure that fish will stay in the store and will be destroyed. Because non-consumer or the consumer are free to take the fish they want in the standard classic store or also in map line. They select all the nice products, and at the end of the day, you have only the bad one. And this is very important because we see that when we work on that, it's not a lot of cost, but the impact of market is clear and obvious. Visual can be just homogeneous sizes. For example, when we place 2 loins or 2 fillets or 2 portions, I have one small and one big. I know this tray will be removed. I put 2 loins or 2 fillets quite the same size with a good disposal, they will be sold. So many times work on visual aspect for consumer is many times not costly. It's more organization, training of the team, they focus on some details, but not very costly. And there is a deep impact for consumer in terms of perception of the value. We were discussing about gapping, the same. If you have a gap product and you remove, all your production which will be sold at good price. You have some gap product, you don't remove them, it's your whole batch which will be claimed and not appreciated by the final consumer. All those details to have clean labels, clean packaging, homogeneous size, all aspects is very important in our daily business. We are spending a lot of time with all the teams just of these stupid points. People who are trimming fillets, they remove a part of flesh which is not clear cut at all. The fillet is not with the same value, and it's peanut in the beginning. We have internally the same discussion with internally in the group Norway-Seafood. We have the same discussion on code, because when they process code upstream, it's totally automatic system. They were involved by the past in their national market and in frozen market, so they didn't pay attention to that. And we are fighting and working since 2 years, 3 years, internally in the group, just to get the visual aspect we need to get the premium price of freshness that we expect with them. But sometimes it's just because they have not a straight and clean cut when they cut the product. No impact of yield, quite no impact of productivity, but problem of value. After the other point has already develop on different manners. I think that we will go more on picture and exchange. Those are examples of tests that we made in Villiers Marin. You have one test up right. It's fillet of whitefish. If you want to make that in sea bass, sea bream, I am not confident that you will get the price from the market on that level of total premium fillets. Totally trimmed, totally skinned, pinbone off. That's premium. In sea bass and sea bream, those products will be very, very high price. On the same way, we say, okay, we have middle center, fillet, pinbone in, skin on, nice presentation, dark matte, one fillet on the flesh, one fillet on the skin. Just visual aspect. This is quite so expensive perception for the customer. He will pay the same price for the dark matte than for the totally trimmed fillets. But in your cost, it's not the same at all. Raw material. And after, if we go to fish, we can have just this step, a gutted fish, but just a clean gut for that. The perception for the consumer is not the same, because it means it's ready to put in the grill. It's not a whole fish. And it's a standard, okay, it's standard, it's ready to, it gives confidence, but it's just a detail. This way also, interesting, when you bleed and you gut a sea bass, you always have this bloody and red area, which is not attractive for the consumer. And between this and this, you have this. You remove just the head and the guts. But the fish, the integrity of the fish, the aspect, is not damaged. It's the white fish with its entire product ready to cook, but we have lower losses than that, better aspect than that, and it's ready to cook because some people don't appreciate. Of course, nobody appreciates the bones, and even on that, I have bones. Here I have more bones, but not the most difficult to remove for the final consumer. And here I have bones with head. So you have different possibility to say, okay, I have a whole fish. You have some example of products that we can produce from that, but at which time we have to say what is the processing cost, what is the yield, and what will perceive the consumer. This is the premium product. But I am not sure that we will pay in trade for that much more than that. And for that, I am not sure that we will pay the difference of yield between that and that. So you have after to make your own judgment, but to produce fillets as we are producing in whitefish or in salmon, presently in sea bass and sea bream, except from niche market, I think it's very difficult because of all what I explained at the beginning, which is mainly connected to yield and size of the product for processing. These are the product standard in salmon. Portion, fillet, skin off, loins, large portions, but to make portions, I need a fillet of more than 1 kilo. If I have a fillet of 120 grams, it's a standard on sea bass. What portion will I make on a fillet of 120 grams? So you have to adapt all the knowledge to your species. And this is, I told you that we had those details. All those are the different steps, step by step, to go to final premium products. But you have all the intermediate, and each customer, regarding his own requirement, some customer will need say, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. It's fillets. Same. All the example of product in salmon, standard, usual, the basics that we are producing, not so easy to copy paste in new species. And on this way, I go back to the presentation I gave you at the beginning to say that all the adjustment can change. It's a dynamic evolution. When we start in 2002, we were delivered in whole fish. After we have been delivered in bouillon in trim A. After we have been delivered in pré-rigor fillet trim D. And now they are working to have fillets, not pré-rigor. Yes, here it's pré-rigor, here it's pré-rigor. They are switching progressively in Norway from pré-rigor, so just to fillet upstream in Norway, not yet pré-rigor, but with an improvement of all the processing, so they don't decrease too much the quality. Because the pré-rigor means that they had to transport live fish from the farms to each slaughtering units with costs and sanitary risks. But now, it's 2 years ago, they have switched from that to that. They have reorganized all their supply chain in the industry, step by step. All this evolution is 10 years. But at each time, you have modification because something creates a difference and they adapt all the organization of the chain internally between the farms and the market.
What do you mean transport to processing plants? It happens in Norway?
In Norway,
Yeah.
when they made pré-rigor fillet, they were making the transport in well boats
Yes.
to processing plant. Now they fish, they slaughter, and after they transport. It's not yet real pré-rigor. That's why I say pré-rigor.
So
not yet
the
pré-rigor.
slaughtering is done on the farm? And that,
Yes,
in that
now
case-
they slaughter in the farm. And they transport dead fish from the farm to the... So it's not real pré-rigor fillets. And we saw the difference in the quality in the factory. But this difference was tiny enough for them to save the advantage of the price of this, and after to improve the cost price because this is more costly than this.
I know from another occasion that in step 2, this one plus this one, in Norway is 300 million euros value per year. So the well boats plus the slaughterhouses, the turnover is 300 million. So the farmers try to capitalize on that market. They take part of that cost and the benefit and the margin on the farm, on the producers. So it's quite a big step.
Yes? It's essential evolution at the level of the total business of the salmon industry. But for the final consumer, it's always the same product in the picture I will show you. At the final step, it's still fillet or portion or loin. But all the internal adjustments have been evolving with different factors, automation, cost price, ability to create more value between pré-rigor and standard and so on.
So they are becoming more and more Mediterranean. We have to, they are following now the Mediterranean model. I don't know.
Okay. And those are some pictures to illustrate what are the products, secondary processing, when they are in the source. You have different products, but your sea bass or your sea bream, they will be on the source on the same type presentation as this for retail. Okay,
This is map.
this is map product. And this is some way where you can create value, but you have no volumes. It's niche market. All those products, even this one, which is Delpierre, one of the most efficient company in France, they don't have large volume on this type of product. Okay? So now, if you have some questions, then we share more.
We,
All those elements.
we have the consumer also.
Yes.
Want to stop and ask on the products first some questions and then ask on the consumer study? Vasily, do you have any comments?
Before I believe the sans arrêt is preservatives. What's the arrêt?
Bones. So that is
the
without
bones.
bones. And usually on all products, it's noticed large, boneless, and in tiny characters. We can still have some, because we cannot guarantee totally boneless. You always have a risk of 1% of bone still remaining, so everybody is replacing large boneless, and we have a small notice to say, can still have one. Okay? If you have no question, maybe I will help you with this presentation. So it's some recent market analysis I've got, where we say it's a market analysis made to consumer in retail stores. To say, how are you working? And the interest is that they were making the analysis for fish and meat, saying, on some way, the same customer. He goes to buy animal proteins. Okay? What we see is that a lot of aspects goes always on price, of course, but after practicity, security, and visual aspect. So here, for example, they say, okay, why do we buy this type of map product? Because it's easy, 61% easy to handle. It means that when you go into the supermarket, you don't have to wait on the shelf, on the counter to get it, but after you don't have a plastic bag with some juice in your bag, in your car, in your fridge, and you don't know how much you can keep it in the fridge. So just because it's practical, 60% say, okay, we are attracted by this type of product. Consumer preference. We are here in fish, quality, and practically easy to cook, very quick to prepare, because it's portion, skinless, boneless, and so on. So the practicity, the access to easy recipe, to easy handling, to all facts will make things easier for the consumer, have a very deep impact on the ability to develop markets. Here we are in consumer preference when priority. So here you have in fish are here. The preference when they purchase, they say they want healthy product, of course. They want good products at low cost, 50%. But the second, the last one is to say we want practicity once again, and something which is attractive, which is fun for me and for my family and for my kids. So all what will give pleasure, will give practicity, will be attractive. It's not always deep cost to create this type of product, but you have a real impact, because if the consumer feels that, then we go to the product and maybe pay a little premium. Those aspects is the advantage specifically of industrial map compared to products that you can have in other presentation, map in the store or bulk. You can see that in fish, the key point is always connected to security and perception of the product. Use by date, it's noted, it's clear, so they can predict, they have some days to consume it.
when they go to the counter, they say it's fresh fish. I don't know if I can take it, keep it from 1 or 2 or 3 days before to eat it. So they feel obliged to eat very quickly. Here they are. It's more practical because they have a shelf life they can organize with. And this aspect is very simple. But 20% say yes, just the lid, the thing, is stronger. So we are more confident because we feel it's more secure. Just because the thing, the lid, is thickness. You see where are the details from the consumer. And they should. It means that if we want to say them, hey guys, go to this product because I think it's a good one. No, many times they decide what is good for them, and we have to be able to learn that. That's one of the advantages that we had in our company in Norway Seafood. At the early stage of the company, we were involved exclusively in prestation for retailers. It means that we were not supplying fish for them. We were a partner. We were the intermediate they need between producers and their stores. And we had a lot of discussion and sharing with them to say, what do you need? Because we are not here to sell products. We have a factory to run. We have all those knowledge. We are ready to do what you need. And just to having this type of discussion with them, show us, and I'm sure that we wouldn't have this knowledge of the market, of this perception of the market, if we were just distributing our own product to them. But when we share deeply, as we did so many years, we see that the market is requiring something, and the stores know that, because that's their core business. If they don't take care to that, the retail chain, they will have the product in the store and the store not running. So we are driven in fresh product by the market, and many points on the market are not very technical, it's more a sum of details which is an offer which is coherent. What expects the customer, because it expects low price, it expects very many things, and we have to choose the good combination. If we make only low price, we are not good. If we make only service, we are not good. If we make only security, we are not good. And the ability of combine the good level of all those parameters is the only way for me to find value creation. Consumer preference. Here, visual aspect of the product, 60%. You see, I have many drafts on this analysis, but anytime it was going on the same item: practicity, price, fun, attractivity, visual aspect. Questions?
So whatever we do, it's irrelevant. If you present it nicely, they don't care.
On some way, you present it nice, practical, with security in terms of traceability, date of fishing, some connection in the internet site to give some information on the breeding and on the feeding and so on. All those points which are not very costly, it doesn't mean processing costs, gives an added value perception for the consumer that we need to develop the volume or to raise the price.
Do you know how much more they're willing to pay for a nice packaging?
I would, just as a feeling, I say that it's the same that for Label Rouge. I told you that Label Rouge, for the consumer, you have the standard and the label. Label gives confidence, it's 15%. So is it 10 or 15? I don't know. Of course, they won't pay double.
but with just some details to get 10 or 15% more. Just by pure efficiency in the industry, it's very difficult to get this level. We cannot get between two fillets if we have a good organization. It's difficult to get 10% or 15% premium by pure efficiency in the industry. If you have a well-managed factory, you say that's the cost price. If you are more efficient, maybe you will get 2 or 3%, but never you will get 10 or 15%.
You have some more slides, 2 or 3 more slides.
So this one, they need natural. They want to be confident that it's natural product, and I think it's essential in sea bass hybrid. That's the reason why I show you the fish, whole fish, but gutted and head off. But it's still an integrated fish. If you process too much of product, at one step, it's not sea bass hybrid, it's a product. And at some time, you lose value because you go on a basic portion and you lose the image of natural raw material. So this aspect, natural, is also important. And I told you, be careful to very deeply value-oriented product. 90% of the people go to simple produit brut means rough product, basic products. And I told you at the beginning that the main flow are still bulk in counter or bulk in wholesale. And of course, we have to rise the price of bulk. We have to develop some alternatives to expand in MAP, in value-added product and so on, but we have to keep in mind that the key of the volumes are still basic and standard products. This is all the data they need. So they need information on location for fishing or production, date of fishing, origin of the farm, is it produced in France or not, and after you have not so important point. So this was connected to the data that you give to the consumer to help him to choose his products. This aspect is connected to perception between fixed weight and variable weight. And we see that finally, even if we have some market for fixed weight products, 84% of the consumer in French retail appreciate variable size because they can choose. But what is not on that, they accept variable size in different map. In the same map, you have a big fillet and a small fillet. You are back on another aspect, visual aspect, and they don't appreciate. But having mapped products with 2 small fillet, 2 medium fillet, or 2 big fillet, they prefer that to all medium or all small.
That's it?
That's it?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any questions, final questions?
So these are examples of files we've built for an organic sea bass producer in south of France. So all our calculation sheets, we split all the costs in 3 main parts. All material cost, all labor cost, packaging cost, and after we have the indirect cost. And we connect all the data to the first element parameter that we decide. For example, this product is sea bass fillet, pinball off, loaded in MAP tray, target 260 grams, plus minus 50 with organic raw material sea bass at 350 grams. It means that the weight of one fillet, automatic calculation with the yield, gives 70 grams. We place the raw material costs, and after all the steps, currently this product, total production cost in my factory, if I want to produce it, I don't speak of the raw material, just the processing cost, 13 euros. Crazy. No customer for that.
Is this a variable weight? Is this a catch weight product or a fixed weight product?
It's a variable weight product.
So the plus or minus 50 you finally get, it's not a giveaway. So it's not.
We have to
part of the yield.
organize with the teams to respect these limits, but we don't have giveaway.
Yes, because it's variable weight, you will get finally the
Yes.
exact weight.
Okay.
So 55%, is it 55% the yield? I cannot
So
see
it
what-
means that here we have 55% losses. We say we receive 100
yes.
kilo of sea bass, we lose 56.
Yes.
So you have all the losses, and at the end you have the remaining weight of product.
Hand
Means that-
filleting, hand filleting.
Hand filleting.
So you get 45% more or less hand filleting
Mhm.
on this size.
On organic, small size,
Pin bone in,
yes. Pinball off.
pin bone off.
Okay, but the deboning was not V-cut. We were not decreasing the yield. It was lot consuming, but it's with a tool that we handily remove all the bones. So if you go for this product and you say we don't act on the yield, we say it's salmon, 5 kilo salmon. I put 5 kilo here. No, it's not 5 here. All is connected to make the calculation. Why
No, you have to go back twice,
Yes, I
twice,
did.
yes, and put 5.
Marview. My processing cost is €1.50. That's
This
it.
cost is only for filleting or for packaging as well?
For packaging in map packing.
Okay. So this is your cost, total cost.
Total cost. Yes. So if you place here,
And what is your production costs about that?
this is the production cost.
It's not the total.
Except because currently I yet still not place a value of the raw material. If I say, okay, I place the sea bass at €4,
€4.
it means 23 euro production cost, including the cost of the fish. All is connected, but if I prepare this to show you, is that it's a real case in our factory where we say, please, you will never find customer for this. Because
How
they
many
were
fillets?
expecting 6 euro of raw material in organic sea
In this
bass.
scenario, how many fillets you put in its tray?
2 or 3. 2 or 3, it depends. You see, you have the average weight, 70 grams. It means that the average is more close to 3 pieces. But the operator, when they put the fish, they have to control that they are in the target. They will put 2, 3, 4 fillets to be in the target.
And just to understand the variable costs in this, have
So,
you separated them?
I didn't have presented everything. First, I told you the yields, and with the raw material cost that you have here, you have the part of the raw material in the cost price. After, we have the labor cost, and as I told you, just removing the bone with a small tool on small fillet, 70 grams. I have a productivity of 6 kilo per hour. To pay the guy, the labor cost in France, only this line is close to 2.5 euro. Because very low.
The 2.45 is what?
The cost
in Europe per kilo of final product, because this is the labor cost of the team's charge, and this is the productivity of these steps in the factory. It means that if we make this hand deboning, we have only 8 kilo per hour of final product. The cost of labor for those 8 is 2.4 at final. So we build all those detailed calculation costs to be able to say what is the real, because I told you the customers, they are discussing about 10 cents. Here, just going from large size to small size, I go to 1.5 euro to 13 euro. And you can see by this type of analysis how deeply it's connecting between your choice as processing to define the product, the cost, and the abilities of the market to go on this cost.
So the total cost, the final cost is 16 euros 30?
The total cost is, if I place the raw material inside is 23, if I place 0 here, just to run the factory, it costs 13.76 per kilo of final product.
Yeah, because if you put the real price for sea bass right now, like 5.8 euros.
Allez, have fun.
Only la carne, Vasily.
Anyway, 4 could be for the sea fish. But still.
28 euro.
Και αυτό δεν έχει το κέρδος
And that's before
X factory, X VAT, and so on. It means a product close to 40 euro in the stores per kilo.
Of course, now you're calculating everything done by hand.
Yes.
In our case, the cost is not in that sizes.
Here, I agree with you. It means that if you don't go on automation on sea bass and sea bream, of course you can work on the location of the processing, because if you make it in hand in Turkey or in Greece, the labor cost won't be 90 euro per hour of labor. So you can act on this, and you can act on this by automation. But those are the key points on sea bass, sea bream. If we have hand processing with high labor costs, we have no solution, because the market won't follow us. So if you go down, you have all the steps filtering. The team, the operator, we are filling and recovering all the volumes of the filters. The deboning step, the people who stock it in buffer stock and make all the traceability control and so on before to put in map. After you have the map production, the condition of all the maps in cartons and ready to store, and all picking shipment. So you have all the details step by step in the factory. And after we have all the packaging costs. All these are packaging costs. One tray for this size, just the plastic tray, is 11 cents. The labels are less than 1 cent, but it's an only. This is the gas, this is the lid, this is the carton, this is the label of the carton, and after you have miscellaneous, you have 78 cents of packaging cost, just the cost of the packaging.
What is the cost?
But if I say I place here not 260 target, but I place 500 target. Yes, 0.5 entrée. It means that all my processing costs in terms of packaging, I have dropped to 48 instead of 78. So this is, if I have prepared this, it illustrates how connected are all your choice as industrial. You define some choice to process, connection to the perception of the product for the final consumer, but also impact of the price.
How do you transport the bulk trays? When I say how do you transport, in what means? by truck, of course, but how do you put them?
Presently in the part of bullion is the same truck and the bulk truck, because you have a specific logistic which spread all the
How you package them?
But this can
How do you put
in
the
cartons.
trays?
In
In
carton.
cartons.
You have
Six
six.
carton?
You have 6 tray in one carton.
Α, και τα κάρτες αυτά είναι και ανοιχτά, δεν είναι κλειστά.
Is open,
No, close. See.
sealed inside. It's
Because
paper carton.
This is the unit which arrive in each retail store. They receive cartons, they open and they display the tray.
In these cartons, the 6 are 3 and 3, or
2 flat, 3 in high.
A paper carton.
Yes.
One more question is, can we talk a little bit about the waste or the byproducts that you may use, because you emphasized that. Are you doing any of this for the CBAS bream recovery?
Presently not, because you have to know, for example, I don't know, I think we were discussing that in Boulogne-sur-Mer we have a specific company, it's a cooperative handled by all the fish industry in Boulogne, which collect and value all the byproducts of Boulogne. To run this factory, they need 30,000 tons of raw material a year. And they will arrive with 1 ton of final product CBAS. You cannot develop anything. That's also a reason why I say if you make upstream close to the raw material production where you have the large volumes, it's more easy to collect, because it's not 1 ton here, 1 ton here. It's maybe 1 ton per day in one big factory in Greece, where you can develop the valuation of this. But for us, we have not enough volumes to develop a specific valuation of CBAS byproducts.
We need to combine the byproducts of Greece from aquaculture and fisheries, probably, to have an industry sustainable business for them. And I don't know, to date is like 6,000 tons or something like that of processed or fillets in Greece out of 120,000 tons. Not more.
Not more.
10 maximum.
That's a lot.
But salmon is like most of the everything is like fillet presented, or
What about the byproducts of salmon?
So you have byproducts, you have different levels. First of all, try to have a minimum as possible quantity of byproducts. I gave you the example of the taste. When it's not a byproduct but it's a product, it's better. Okay. So it's simple, but you have to keep it in mind, because many times the more simple way is more efficient. After you have all bitten pieces products, it means that it's part of flesh, because close to the bellies, chunks of steaks, chunk of portion, and so on. This is bitten species for value-added product industry, where they use it just as component for recipes.